I knew signing up to this was going to absolutely ruin my credibility.
Inside world sport's most controversial training camp. Preparations for the enhanced games, where drugs banned elsewhere in sport are part of the process.
I want to be able to run the fastest time as possible and push my body to the limit.
I'm really excited. I'm quite open about taking things.
I think it's extremely irresponsible. Some of the effects are irreversible.
Sport has long waged an arduous and ongoing battle against drugs cheats in a bid to preserve the integrity of competition and ensure that those watching can believe what they see.
It'll be the most dramatic story out of these Olympics or perhaps any others. Ben Johnson of Canada has been caught taking drugs.
But in the enhanced games, the usual rules don't apply.
It worked really well.
It sends a dangerous message about performance-enhancing drugs.
The message is clear. Do not try this at home.
We've been granted access to this sprawling sports complex here in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. This is where the enhanced games athletes are spending months, not only able to train using the sports facilities here, but also able to take performance-enhancing drugs as they prepare for one of the most divisive and controversial events the world of sport has seen.
With the first enhanced games scheduled to take place in May in Las Vegas, the event focuses on three core sports: swimming, sprinting and weightlifting.
In a safe and medically supervised environment to become faster and stronger than ever before.
Athletes able to earn up to $1 million if they break the world record in their discipline.
To showcase to you what our true human potential is.
Organisers say the drugs are all market authorised and hail what they claim is a science-based and visionary project exploring physical potential.
Together, we are enhanced.
Swimmer Ben Proud is a former world champion who won a silver medal at the 2024 Paris Olympics. He became the first British athlete to join the enhanced games in a move condemned by governing body British Aquatics.
Do you accept that you are, to a certain extent, normalising doping?
Yeah, I mean, I do want to move away from that term doping. Like, it's not, you know, to me doping is to do with cheating and breaking the rules, but, you know, we're just using substances that are readily available to the public. You know, a lot of people use these things, and it's so far from the professional elite swimming world.
But if it was replicated in that professional elite world, if what you're doing makes it perhaps remove some of the stigma, then it could have an impact in that world.
Yeah, I hope it does the opposite. I hope it increases stigma, because then you have this world where actually, you know, these substances can be used, and now there's absolutely no space for it, even more so now, because there is an avenue where if you do want to do that, you can go and earn great money. If this does increase the use of, you know, these drugs in sport, then okay, terrible thing, but I really don't believe that's going to be the case.
But nonetheless, there will still be some who say, you know, this is all about money.
Yeah.
And you're putting that ahead of the values that you previously tried to uphold, and that is hypocritical.
Yes and no. Like, yes, hypocritical in the sense that if I said I was always going to be clean, then yes. But during that time as a professional swimmer, I think I conducted myself well. I was on 10 consecutive podiums towards the end of my career. I got the most sub 22 second swims in history, and, you know, I did a lot of things I'm proud of. Yeah. I built this skill, and that skill had no value in swimming anymore. You know, even though I did all these things, I rarely received any sort of compensation. And you start to think, especially as a 31-year-old, you know, what use is this? What's the point of spending 15 years building a skill just to retire and forget about it for the rest of my life?
I like that start though, the way you set up and came off. It was very, very clean.
The athletes have been enticed here by the financial rewards on offer. But involvement in the enhanced games also comes at a cost. Last year, World Aquatics became the first international sports federation to ban any athletes, coaches or officials that are participating in the enhanced games from their competitions.
I knew signing up to this was going to absolutely ruin my credibility as a traditional swimmer. And therefore the question is, like, you know, why wouldn't I mold myself to these new set of rules? Like, why wouldn't I take part in the study, like be a part of the enhanced program to the full extent, to be part of this new career?
You don't have a lot of money involved with Olympic sports, sadly, you know, and now we're starting to bring that conversation into this. I'm getting more coverage now of of a retired athlete, what I'm doing now with the enhanced games, that I ever did in my whole entire career.
Oh, magic! Yes!
How do you feel about those that say that it sort of sets a bad example to the outside world?
Doping is happening in sport, especially in gym communities. You hear a lot about people, you know, buying it through the back door in unsafe ways, maybe even taking too much. I feel like the stuff that we're doing here is just going to facilitate, you know, a better understanding of these sort of drugs that we'll be taking, so that, you know, in the future people can do it in a medically safe way.
The 39 athletes being housed in this luxury accommodation for several months are being given every chance to break records with food, state-of-the-art equipment,
We're going to do half of each, okay? So we go 1, 1, 1.
and coaching staff, all provided by organisers. Doping programmes are usually conducted in secret, of course, but the enhanced games are turning that on its head. This is the hospital here on the outskirts of Abu Dhabi, where some of the athletes will receive performance-enhancing drugs. We weren't allowed to film inside, but organisers say the enhancements will be given under strict medical supervision as part of a scientific trial.
What are the range of substances that athletes could take?
Categories of anabolic agents, anabolic steroids, as you might typically hear of them. Examples of that might include testosterone. Other categories include peptides and growth factors. These could be things like EPO, growth hormone. And then there's a category of stimulants and metabolic modulators. You know, stimulants are typically things that affect how the brain functions, the nervous system functions, how the mind functions. And then metabolic modulators are things that help the body produce more energy, for example, or regulate metabolism.
The doctors are kind of in charge of like looking at where we are like physically and sort of figuring out like the doses. Anabolics is an obvious one. Those types are going to help in a sport like Olympic weightlifting.
British sprinter Reece Prescott took part in the Tokyo 2020 Olympics before retiring last year. But he's also here, UK Athletics saying it was appalled that he'd signed up to the enhanced games.
Any regrets because of the backlash you faced, the criticism? I mean, maybe even without that, have you sort of thought at times, am I doing the right thing?
I think for me, like I said, I'm not against the decision I made. I'm always someone that owns my decision. Everything that I do, I take full responsibility for. I'm actually, you know, for me, to be able to just live my dream again, actually to be an athlete at full time, I'm very grateful for the opportunity. So obviously there's been some controversy around the decision, and I can understand everyone's entitled to their opinion, but ultimately it's my decision. I'm going to stand by it. What people are not necessarily understanding, that the enhanced games is a different format, it's a different entity, where we have our own rules over here, we have our own setup over here. We totally respect what's going on in terms of the Olympic Committee, the competitions, we still respect that. There's not like a massive rivalry here, we're just doing something new.
But aren't you setting a bad example to the outside world?
Well, I wouldn't say
that the reality of it?
I think depending on the situation, I think how you look at it, you know, I think if you look at me during my athletic career, I was a model example, I followed all the rules. I think I'm now doing something different and I'm following the rules here. I don't necessarily think I've done anything wrong as such. I just think it's a different step, and I think once we kind of explain what's going on over here, people kind of get a deeper understanding, but I think it's just conveying that message and looking to the future, you know.
By turning their backs on mainstream track and field, these athletes have become embroiled in one of sport's biggest controversies. They argue that they're pioneers and simply seizing a rare financial opportunity. But the many critics say that the enhanced game sets a bad example, it normalises doping, could be dangerous, and risks harming the integrity of sport.
These among the range of sports and anti-doping authorities that have condemned the enhanced games as crossing an ethical line.
The key concern that I've got about the potential impact of these enhanced games is very much on the next generation. So the young people who may tune in and watch these games or hear about it, I do very much believe that it sends a dangerous message about performance-enhancing drugs, with little, if anything, said about the health risks associated with performance-enhancing drugs. And those health and safety risks and well-being risks are significant. It can be cardiovascular problems such as a heart attack or stroke, just to name a few.
Last year, the Enhanced Games suffered a legal blow when a US judge dismissed an $800 million compensation lawsuit it had filed against the World Anti-Doping Agency and swimming authorities, arguing that incentivised athletes to boycott its event. Max Martin is the co-founder of the Enhanced Games.
The sports authorities say that they are dismayed by this, that there's a reason why they're unhappy. Does that not bother you? Doesn't trouble you?
No, it doesn't, because we're very clear about how we are differentiating ourselves and how we are changing the rules and how we are not trying to interfere with the current system. We're not out there throwing stones at the traditional sporting organizations like they're doing it at us.
Do you accept that there is a risk?
I think there is a risk with anything in life. I think there is a risk if I go down on the street and I live in New York City, that when I go down that I get hit by a car. What we do is we put in place the right regulation, in this case traffic lights, to make sure that we mitigate as much of those risks as possible. There's people every year that die from taking aspirin. But what we do is we take the right precautions under the highest clinical and medical standards that we have to mitigate that risk as much as we possibly can. The message is clear. Do not try this at home. Do not do this on your own. Do not order this on the internet somewhere from where you don't know where it's coming from. That is everything that we can stand against.
I'm the first enhanced athlete, but I won't be the last.
Australian Olympic swimmer James Magnussen has already taken a range of banned drugs to prepare for the Enhanced Games.
Doctors, blood work, sleep data and protocols.
And told me how it had felt.
It worked really well, maybe too well. As you've probably seen from those images that went pretty viral, my body enjoyed it quite a lot.
What were you taking?
A mixture of, so we kind of cycled on and off a few different compounds. The base was obviously testosterone. That's kind of the meat and potatoes of any kind of enhancement protocol for a male, I believe.
Do you understand those who are concerned that that is promoting the use of performance-enhancing drugs?
There's parts of what we're doing that should be admired and should be emulated. The dedication, the hard work, the focus on recovery, diet, being in peak physical condition. But this part, the enhancements, the protocols, it's not for everyone. And I think that message is pretty clear.
Any concerns at all about any potential long-term health impacts, side effects?
I think as professional athletes, we take risks with our health innately by what we do. There's nothing healthy about training at your peak of your physical ability for 30 hours a week. I believe that were there to be long-term implications for my health, there surely would have been some short to medium terms indicators that say, hey, this isn't tracking properly, that you are seeing side effects, there are metrics that are unusual for a man your age. And to this point, we haven't seen those.
But some experts maintain that these athletes could be exposing themselves to a greater chance of heart attacks and psychiatric issues.
I think it's been misrepresented to the athletes. I think the athletes are exposed to some substantial unknown risks that they're just not being made aware of. They're being told that it can be, they can use substances safely, and the evidence isn't there for that to be possible.
These athletes will be taking enhancements for 12 to 16 weeks.
Is that enough time to be sure about your findings?
That's what we want to find out, of course.
Well, you might not find out until the future when one of them has a heart issue.
Very important. That's why we don't stop the study then.
Right, so how long is the study
then? They take the 16, 5 years. They stop taking these enhancements, and then until 5 years after, they're followed up every year.
I think it's extremely irresponsible because the athletes are being told that their safety can be protected. And even if there are tests that will happen in several years from now, what will they do if they are showing effects on the athletes? Because some of the effects are irreversible. So obviously that's a major concern.
Do you accept that there may be a risk going down this avenue?
I think potentially, like I said, with anything in life, you know, any sort of medication, anything in general, there's always a risk with that kind of situation. I think with the enhanced, you know, I trust in the doctors and I trust what's kind of going on here. So far in the process, like we've had access to just general health checks all the time, which is kind of good. So if anything, I'm more clear on where my body is from a health perspective now. You know, I've had my blood work done, I've had ultrasounds, you know, I've had all the things, my prostate checked, all these things that are just like general health checks. So I'm actually pretty aware of my body at the moment. And I think that's kind of a good direction to go in. But like anything, there's always a risk associated with different things, you know.
With investors that include US tech billionaire Peter Thiel and a venture fund backed by one of the sons of US President Donald Trump, the Enhanced Games is already selling lifestyle healthcare products on its website, ranging from supplements to testosterone replacement therapy and longevity treatments.
You present the Enhanced Games as something of a vision, but isn't the truth that it's about making money?
Yes, it's about making money. We're not a non-profit organization. On the one hand side, we have a sporting business. In that sporting business, we host the Enhanced Games, but we will also be producing more and more sporting events. We utilize sports as well to create awareness that performance enhancements under the right clinical and medical supervision can actually be very good for people. And once we have that awareness, we give people access to those performance enhancements. What we oftentimes get compared with is something like the Olympics. We're not the Olympics.
But it's not separate, is it? You're absolutely connecting with the Olympics or with major championships, because you're saying if you break the world record that often has been set in these Olympics, then we'll give you lots of money. So there's an obvious connection there.
That is a good point, and yes, there is.
How would you feel if you were the record holder that's dedicated your entire career to competing clean, naturally, and then somebody comes along and takes that record? Does that not devalue that record?
It doesn't, because it's set under a completely different set of rules. And also the traditional federation is not accepting that record as a record.
At this year's Winter Olympics, the most powerful figure in world sport was asked for her views.
I was wondering what your thoughts are on the Enhanced Games, given that it seems to go against everything that the Olympics stands for.
Safeguarding of athletes and athletes' health and well-being is a top priority, and that is the stance that we will continue to take. There are many different sports competitions around the world that abide by different rules and regulations, and they're free to continue to do that. But for us in the Olympic movement, we will continue to ensure the safety of our athletes.
This project has already claimed one world record, Greek swimmer Christian Golomiev achieving it last year with the help of performance-enhancing drugs. The traditional world of sport is being challenged like rarely before, a host of disruptors and innovators pushing the boundaries. But little has sparked as much controversy as the Enhanced Games. Those behind it claim it's here to stay. The question, at what cost?